Hello, folks, and welcome to the FSElite podcast. Joining me today is Calum, and we're going to be talking about exploring the virtual world. So, how are you doing today, Calum?
Hi, yeah, doing really well actually. Had a really good week at work. It's been busy as usual, but I've had loads of time to flight sim and also tinker with the website. So hopefully it's a lot more speedier than before. And I hope you're enjoying the review of Prague, which I posted up a couple of days ago now.
Cool. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of flying as per normal, and hopefully my round the world trip is up. I've been working on that off and on, so hopefully I've got it up and working. Just tinkering here and there, that's my big goal. So by the time you hear this, it should be up anyway. So yeah, we wanted to talk a little bit about exploring the virtual world, a la the Amazing Flight 28, like I did, something like that. And that's going to be our main topic today. But first, the news. And now for the news. Editorials on our website that have been posted this week. The Amazing Flight 28. Go check it out. I wrote it about my flight around the world based on the Amazing Race. And that's available on our website, FSElite.net. Calum also wrote a review of Aerosoft's Mega Airport Prague. And that is also available on FSElite.net. In flight sim news this week, we have FS2 Crew releasing the PMDG 777 Global First Officer. It's a brand new expansion pack for their FS2 Crew PMDG 777 product. With this expansion, you'll get 7 new First Officer voice sets to choose from. And for a limited time, previous customers can use the coupon code 777FO and get €5 off. And Imagine Sim, New York's LaGuardia has been released. In this dense New York built-up environment, the airport is accessible to everyone. With the built-in multiple option configuration tool, it is extremely customizable, making it suitable for all types of computer specifications. If you can run FSX, then you can use LGA. And prepared 3D users, fear not, as users of the FSX version will be able to download the P3D version free of charge. There you go. In still other news, TFDI Design now has the weather radar available with their 717 that they're working on. That takes advantage of the Rex Advantage radar. Check it out on our website, FSElite.net, for the full story. And Aerosoft has released Valkyrie X. Valkyrie X is a very accurate recreation of the island, including both Valkyrie Airport and the newer Valkyrie Heliport, located on the southern tip of the island. The whole island is modeled in high detail to recreate the scenic terrain of that part of Norway. And Aerosoft has released their NavData Pro charts. After revealing the costs and a release date, Aerosoft has delivered and released their charts. If you're unsure of using NavData Pro, then try it out from today until June 30th, 2016. Below is the pricing structure. NavData Pro charts 1-year access is €55.99. NavData Pro charts 1-month access is €7.99. NavData Pro charts 1-day access is €2.99, and the NavData Pro bundle for 1-year access is €69.99. And I do say the euro is pretty low right now, so now is your chance to get it for a relatively low price, especially if you're in the US, or I imagine the UK, because the exchange rate's all messed up right now due to world events. So yeah, there you go. That is this week's news, and now back to the main topic. Alright, and now on to the main topic of exploring the virtual world. We'll start out with simple questions here.
For a simple mind like myself.
Yes, absolutely simple. We all are simple-minded. What airports do you like to fly into and out of the most, and do they have any add-on sceneries associated with them?
Well, I think being British myself, I spend a lot of my time flying in and out of the UK, in particular, probably Gatwick, just because that's kind of like my local, well, not my local airport, but my hub airport, with the greatest amount of flexibility in terms of the routes. So obviously we've got a UK 2000 scenery for that. And they've done a pretty good job of replicating Gatwick. Just, I think it's a little bit outdated now. The texturing, the rendering of some of the models as well is quite outdated. So it'd be nice to see a bit of an improvement for that. Also spend a lot of time flying kind of over the Atlantic, mostly to kind of like New York. So I spent a lot of time flying into FS Dream Team's JFK V2. And I think once the 747 comes out, I can start to replicate some of the more Caribbean routes that a specific airline here in the UK flies from Gatwick. So yeah, I think for me, UK, America, Caribbean, and quite a lot of like the Spains and Germanys for me is probably the most frequently visited airports. I think Gibraltar is probably one of the most visited sceneries I've visited after taking off. I think that's just because of the challenge in terms of the approach, and also the difficulty and the weather as well. I think is something that really draws my inspiration for that airport in particular.
Yeah, I have quite a number of airports on my regular routes. I don't have sceneries for all of them. San Francisco is my hub, and we have Flightbeam San Francisco, which has made me oh so happy. My second hub is Seattle, and we have Taxi to Gate Seattle, which makes me oh so happy. I wouldn't call it a hub, but one of my focus cities is London, so I have Aerosoft's London Heathrow Airport. I would like to get UK 2000's Gatwick. That's on my list of scenery to get. I've got Aerosoft's Amsterdam Schiphol, and I like that very much, so I've been flying into Amsterdam a little bit more lately. Another focus city I like to fly into is Oslo, simulating the Norwegian routes from Los Angeles and Oakland. So I've just got Oslo. I'm enjoying Oslo a lot, so that's been added to my list. And other places I fly a lot, Tokyo. I hear there's some really good scenery for Narita. I haven't got it yet, but it's on my list. And I can't remember who does it, but I was just reading a review of it today on Absim that I was really interested in, so I'll probably be getting that in the near future. I also like flying into Las Vegas. I don't have scenery for that, but I know FS Dream Team does it. Honolulu, no scenery for that, but I know FS Dream Team does it. JFK, no scenery for that, but FS Dream Team does it. Phoenix, again, no scenery, FS Dream Team. Los Angeles, FS Dream Team, don't have it. San Diego, Latin Wings, I think, but I don't have it. And Newark, but I don't think there's not good scenery for Newark that I know of. Dulles, I eventually want to get that from Flightbeam, and Denver as well from Flightbeam. I have so much money now. Once I got Taxi to Gate Seattle, I started spending a massive amount of money on scenery, which I never had before. So, before, default scenery would do me just fine. Now, not anymore, and I'm spending all sorts of money on it. So it's kind of unfortunate, really, from a financial perspective, but there's a lot of good sceneries out there. List goes on and on for the cities I fly to.
So I'm just kind of jumping the gun in terms of the questions here, but you brought up a really important point. So for you, flying into default scenery is okay, whereas I very rarely choose to fly into somewhere with default scenery. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the amount of places I regularly fly to in the last year has decreased down to usually the amount of add-on sceneries I have. So in the U.S., I only generally fly these days to San Francisco, Seattle, and Sacramento, because those are the places I have scenery for. which really sucks because there's so many U.S. airports that I used to be able to fly to and now can't. Dulles is the other one, or not Dulles, DCA is the other one I have scenery for. Tropical Sim or whatever it is. It's not great scenery, but it's scenery, so I'll fly into DCA from time to time. But every other airport in the U.S. I don't have scenery for, so I fly into it less often. Like I said, a year ago, that wasn't the case. Internationally, I kind of settle a lot. I didn't have scenery for London for the longest time. I'd still fly in there all the time. Oslo, didn't have scenery for that. I'd still fly into there all the time. Tokyo, I'll still fly into there. Hong Kong, Singapore, Melbourne. I have, what is it? I have Flight Tampa, Sydney, so I've been flying into Sydney more often. But I'm switching. It used to be the default was okay, and now most of the time, if it's default scenery, I'm probably going to pick somewhere else to go.
I think for me, default scenery is just a no-go. I mean, the whole point of me on flight sim is to be immersed in the setting, whether that's in the aircraft, departure airport. I mean, why would I spend hours and hours flying a fake airplane just to fly into scenery that just looks awful with block buildings or screwed up taxiways? I mean, especially when you're flying on VATSIM or any other online virtual network. I mean, there's nothing worse than being told to taxi onto like a taxiway, which in your scenery, because you're using default, just doesn't exist.
True.
So for me, if it's default, I'm probably not going to fly into it seriously. I may like fly around and do some like touching or something if the scenery is cool, but definitely not going to spend hours and hours flying to somewhere just for it to be a default blocked building.
Yeah, the flip side of that though is performance, and with me and an older computer, sometimes it's better to have default scenery than it is to have add-on scenery. I'll give you an example. Before I cleaned up my sim, going from Aerosoft's Heathrow to Flightbeam San Francisco, as I was taxiing in, I'd get FSU IPC dinging at me every time. Now it doesn't do that anymore. Can't figure out why, but in that case, it's like, well, I'm glad I have the scenery, but gee, is it close to running out of memory?
Yeah, I don't know, maybe because I use Prepared 3.2, and my PC is pretty decent, if I'm honest. So I probably don't have that issue as much, but I can definitely appreciate that people do need to be able to fly into their places, otherwise what's the point?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can have the best scenery in the world, and if your game crashes before you get there, then you just wasted your time. So that's the flip side to that argument. And like I said, I have more places without scenery than I do with scenery, and part of that is due to budget, and part of that is due to the fact that, well, if I spend my time going from, I don't know, San Francisco to Dubai, I don't want it to crash when I get to Dubai.
Yeah.
Because that's not acceptable after 16 hours. It's just not. Alright, so moving on here. How many times have you flown around the world in the sim?
Is that like, do you mean like how many miles I've done? Or if I've ever done a round the world trip?
How many times have you done a round the world trip?
Nil.
Really?
So, I mean, like, I've done, like, I hop to and from the States all the time. I've never done a Pacific flight. I've never crossed the Pacific. And only, I think once, I've done the UK to Singapore to Australia, and then flew it back. But I've never gone around the Earth.
Oh, man, you should definitely do that. I mean, even for you doing, like, London to Seattle to Tokyo to London again, that would be, 30 hours, maybe? Maybe a little bit more?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know, for me, I think it's about realism. I don't often fly kind of fake routes like that. I know it's not a fake route, but I like to fly with one airline, turn it around, and get my airplane back to base. I mean, I'm quite a stickler with making sure that aircraft I take off or land from exactly the same place where it kind of left off.
Yeah, well, I do that where I have the rule where I always take off from where I just landed, unless it's like, you know, if I land in San Francisco, then it's okay to take off from Oakland or San Jose, but it's not okay to take off from Sacramento. If that makes any sense. So
yeah, it makes sense.
So I mean, if I land in Southern California, I can go to any of the Southern California airports except San Diego. But you know, I don't know. For me, I can fly, let's say, from San Francisco to Sydney in one day, and obviously take a rest because that's a long flight, even if you do sleep, you know, most of the way through. So the next day, go Sydney to Singapore, and then do a rest again, and then the next day, Singapore to London, take a rest again, and then the next day, London back to San Francisco. So, I mean, that's what I typically do when I do a round-of-the-world flight. With the Amazing Flight, it was different because there were more stops than I usually do. Usually I just stop at the big hub cities, but I use fictional airlines, too, to get me to do that. Like, I have this fictional airline I call Travel World Airlines, and that's just, I just use TWA colors, because it happens to have the same abbreviation. But by doing a fictional airline, it means that I can fly from any location around the world at any time. So even though there's no airline service to and from Chico, I can use the 737 to fly in and out of Chico if I wanted to. So that gives me more flexibility.
Yeah. No, I get that, but for me, I think it's about what's the most realistic way I can get from point A to point B, with still being quite immersive in terms of, like, and also time as well. I mean, I like to do turnarounds and turn around the aircraft, so I feel a sense of achievement, so I think that has a bit of an impact for me as well.
So it doesn't feel good to you, say, to do London to San Francisco, go to sleep, and then come back?
Well, in terms of real world time, I mean, no. Most Western American flights for the UK take off kind of when it's like midnight or 2 a.m. for me, so that's kind of how I want it to work. I wouldn't want to fly through the day when that aircraft's actually like 7 hours already in front of me.
Oh, yeah, no, that makes sense. But, like, what I'll do, and this is partly because I don't have a job, but, you know, if I fly to London from San Francisco, I'm getting there at, I don't know, between 2 and 4 in the morning. So I'll stay up to 2 or 4 in the morning, however long I need to do to complete the flight. 3-hour rest break, obviously. And then the next day, I'll do my best to wake up around midnight or 2 a.m. so I can do the flight back.
Okay. Makes sense.
So, I mean, it completely sabotages your sleep schedule, but that's the way I do it, or try to do it. But while we're on that topic, though, I don't know how long-haul pilots do it, because they give you a 24-hour rest break, right? But you cannot sleep for 24 hours. Trust me, I've tried, and it's just, you can't do it. You know, you can sleep for 8 hours to 12 hours, maybe, if you're really, really tired. But, you know, you wake up 12 hours after you landed, and it's like, well, I can't take off for another 12 hours. What the hell am I going to do with these 12 hours? And, God, I'm going to be fatigued when I actually do get on the airplane. I don't know how the real guys do it. I really want an answer to that question.
I'm sure someone will answer it for you one day.
Yeah, hopefully the next time we get an airline pilot on here. So how often do you fly to a completely new airport? Is it just when you get new scenery, or is that it? Or do you just sometimes say, oh, I've never gone to St. Martin before, I think I'll go to St. Martin today?
I think more so the first part with new scenery. So I've just recently downloaded Memphis. So like the trial version, so I'm going to try that out and see how it goes in terms of performance. So I might do a quick flight over there and just see what Sodes like and everything. And I've never even dreamed of flying to Memphis before, so I think that's going to be quite exciting. But I've also got like random bits of scenery I don't think I've flown to for a long time, so sometimes that has an influence over to where I fly. So at the minute, I've just remembered that I had a couple of sceneries in Spain, so I'm just going to head down there today and see what they're like. And also as well, Tivat was recently released for free, so I'm going to give that a shot because that's meant to be a really challenging approach. And I think when I'm deciding where to fly, weather has a big impact, because if I'm in the mood for a challenge, then I want somewhere with some pretty crappy weather so I can take a load of fuel and do a few like go arounds and missed approaches and see kind of what I can do there. But then sometimes if I just want just a flight just to build up some hours, then I'll choose somewhere relatively easy to fly into.
Well, you should fly to the West Coast more often. We need to make that happen.
I've done San Francisco a few times, but it's like, again, it's like 12, 13 hours for me, so I have to be up pretty early to get there and to mess around. And also like timing it with real life, so if I have plans to go out, I need to kind of time it so I don't land when I'm out.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I'm not really a fan of pausing at the top of descent, because again, I think that just spoils the immersion for me. I know sometimes if I go out or whatever during the flight, but then at least I know it's still within real time, etc.
Yeah, I do it when I have to, but like you, I'm not a fan of pausing at the top of descent at all, because it ruins the immersion. So anyway, let's see, what other questions do we have here? Will you fly into a default airport if you have to because it's an alternate?
So I know I have a friend who won't fly to somewhere unless he has the alternate in the scenery as well, or he won't set an alternate which isn't within his scenery banks.
Oh, good grief.
Yeah, I thought the same at first, but then I thought actually no, it makes sense, because I mean if you're flying to somewhere where you potentially have to divert, the experience is going to be the same if you landed into somewhere with just default scenery.
True.
All you want to do is be immersed, and if that means having the correct scenery for your alternate, then that's what you want as well. So I think it makes sense. I think it's extreme, but I think it's something that people will probably start to appreciate more if they start to do it more.
Yeah, you just have to have the money and the computer to run all these sceneries. I think that's the bottom line. And as long as you have the money and the computer, you can add pretty much any scenery that people develop, and you could fly pretty much anywhere in the world at this point. There's been so many sceneries developed. Yeah, no,
I agree. I mean, so Aerosoft have said they're developing Funchal, and alongside Funchal, they're also developing Porto Santo, which from the majority of airlines, that is the alternate airport. So that's pretty cool, the fact that one developer in one package is developing both airports.
Yeah, it would be nice if somebody developed Hong Kong and Macau as well, because that's a typical alternate for Hong Kong.
But I think in general, worst case, if I really wanted to fly somewhere, I don't think I would be put off too much if I didn't have the alternate scenery as well. I think it's a nice to have more than a necessity.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And, there's some airports where they just don't have that on scenery, but I want to fly there anyway. For instance, Melbourne has scenery, but you have to have the Australia region to use it. Well, I don't have the Australia region, and even if I did, after flying for 15 hours, it would probably crash the sim. So, if I want to fly into Melbourne, I have to use default scenery. I have no other choice. So, sometimes you're kind of cornered into it, depending on where you want to fly.
And I think that's a whole different podcast. I have very strong opinions on that subject.
Ah, Well, I'm glad we have more podcasts in our belt. So is there anything else that you want to bring up about scenery or traveling around the virtual world?
So do you... I know we kind of talked about it, like real routes, but do you kind of stick to the departure times in, like, how far do you take your realism when you're flying a transatlantic route from London to San Francisco?
Generally, I fly real world times. I fly real world flights. And I take the flight plans as much as I can from FlightAware. There are some times when I have to use a fictional airline, and I'll do that. For instance, I did that the other day. No airline, believe it or not, flies from London to Honolulu, which I'm actually kind of surprised by. But no
That's very surprising.
Yeah, no airline does it, so I was like, screw it, I want to do it, so I did it, and I just took the TWA colors and, let's pretend Travel World Airlines does it, and let's try and figure out a realistic time for departure and arrival, etc. So, it happens occasionally. It doesn't happen as often as it used to, but it does happen occasionally. What about you?
I try to. I mean, there are occasions where it's just not possible. I think everyone probably has the same problem with it sometimes. But I think as close as I can to the real time, I will. In particular for long haul. Short haul, I'm not so bothered about, because I know things just happen in the real world, which causes massive delays anyway, so I'm not so fussed. But in terms of flight numbers and all that, I try to stick to the most realistic way of doing that as possible, because I think that just helps with the immersion quality.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it is time to our shoutouts. Do you have anything?
No.
Yeah, I don't have anything either, so I guess that's time to wrap it up then. Well, FSElite is brought to you by the FSElite team and the Knick-Knack Podcast Network. This work is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License.
If you have any questions or feedback for the FSElite podcast crew, then please send an email to podcast@fselite.net.
Until next time, stay safe, stay sane, happy landings. Bye.
Bye-bye. 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 Bye-bye.